All right, folks, we're going to pick up right where we left off. We did our Dark Dissidence State of the Union live stream on Thursday night where we watched Joe Biden deliver his hour-long remarks. We evaluated that in real time and immediately after. That was amongst the most boring political speeches I've ever seen in my life. Literally, the only thing of note was that he led with Ukraine in January 6th. I thought that was especially stupid. Other than that, I thought the speech was as forgettable as any speech I happen to come across on the TV when I'm turning the channels. Nothing remarkable about it whatsoever. He was sharp compared to his worst moments, but he was not especially sharp. He had some brain farts there. The whole thing where he tried to challenge Marjorie Taylor Greene to the Lake and Riley thing by holding up the badge, I mean, that was horribly handled. If the average president did that, if Obama made a mistake like that, that would be all the news. So anyway, didn't think it was an especially good performance. Thought the speech was pretty awful, but that's not the impression you would get if you took Morning Joe's word for it.
We called that in real time.
Yes, we called it in real time. Russell
not saying that was the hardest call to make, but
no, but we did anticipate that. So let's go to Morning Joe the morning after the State of the Union.
I'm telling you, Joe Biden proved, I think, he still has a pulse. That's number one. And Speaker Mike Johnson might have rolled his eyes more than both my daughters in their entire lives. What's your take?
Mike Johnson, such a catty bitch.
Had a pulse. He had Frazier's left hook. I mean, I have never seen, and part of this is delivery.
Like, I can't even
Part
take
of it
this
is speech writing.
I can't
Part of
take
it is setting up the argument for the fall. I've sat through a lot of these, and I have never seen one side put in so many uncomfortable positions as the Republicans were last night, because they were on the wrong side of history. They were on the wrong side of the polls. They were on the wrong side of politics. They were on the wrong side of decency. This was a tour de force by Joe Biden. And you had Peggy Noonan last week calling him cranky old Joe after his angry press conference, who last night, Michael Beschloss likened him to Harry Truman. And there was a real give 'em hell Harry part of this. But what really completed it was give 'em hell Harry meets Ronald Reagan's A City Shining Brightly on the hill for all the world to see.
Right.
He says, you know, he's been around a long time. He's been called too young. He's been called too old. But listen to this.
He's been called too racist.
But I know what endures. I can see our North Star.
He's been called a plagiarist.
That we are
He's
all
overcome
created equal. And
He's been called the senator from MBNA.
We have never reached
He's overcome
that goal.
He's been called the author of mass incarceration.
Give up trying.
He's been called a friend to segregationists.
I thought it was a brilliant turn on Donald Trump when he said
he's been called a serial liar and plagiarist.
It's not about how old you are. It's about how old your ideas are.
That's right.
And time and time
That's
again,
right, Sheila. It's about how old your ideas are.
There were just so many beautiful lines here.
Just
again,
you're old,
delivered
it doesn't mean look at Trump. He's old too.
My lifetime has taught me to embrace
he thinks
freedom
Obama
and
is still in the White
democracy,
House.
to give hate no safe harbor. Now, some other people my age, they see a different story. An American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me. And in the words of Naomi Biden, doubt him, then watch him.
Doubt him and watch him. Beats the odds every time.
That literally, man, that was like physically painful to sit through.
You know, it's funny, like for the longest time, we didn't actually cover the mainstream media TV videos anymore. Like we didn't cover their clips anymore because it was just kind of predictable and boring. But these last few shows we've had to, because it's just like watching a train wreck in slow motion, watching these people try and convince the audience that 2 + 2 is 5 and that up is down and left is right. I mean, it's just incredible the narrative they are able to spin. A tour de force? Like, if you call that a tour de force, you may as well have just written that the night before, which I'm sure he did. I'm sure he came up with that the night before. You'd have called literally anything a tour de force.
Sure.
It's a tour de force in the sense that he was on stage for an hour. speaking, right?
Yes. Yes.
But aside from that,
He
like,
he didn't shit himself as
Yeah,
Vegas
right.
odds had 8-3 odds on.
yeah, right, exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
But friend of show, not sarcastically, for real, friend of show, Matt Taibbi, as usual, nails it with his signature wit. State TV slobbers over State of the Union. Could state media in the GDR, Soviet Union, Maoist China, or Pinochet's Chile have reviewed a leader's speech as breathlessly as Joe Biden's State of the Union? And they have a video here that I would recommend. This is on his Substack Racket. But I'm going to jump ahead a bit to a particularly salient portion. This wasn't state TV, not Ort or Voice of Zaire or Deutscher Fernfunk. Gonna have to ask him about that. Really, if it had been, what would be different? If anything, predecessors would have been more restrained, not sinking to, Rachel, this was classic Mobutu. Folksy, funny at times. Exactly, Nicole. Every bit the nation's helmsman, but still the son of a cook. Even Marcos or Suardo might have been creeped out to watch where MSNBC went politically. Quote, I thought it surpassed my expectations, and it transcended my expectations, Chris Hayes exclaimed. Often the sole male on set, Chris is brought out like the gimp from time to time now, his job apparently being to add slavish excess. Quote, we know what's happening here. I'm running against the last guy. There was no sort of false, I don't know, sort of papering that over. The caricature of the president of the United States has gotten so over the top in the conservative media. And I even think out in public, in the outer perimeter of Americans who do not pay very careful attention to politics, that this guy is just ludicrously doddering and incapable. And then you see that and you're like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. Quote, even out in the public, unquote, their opinions of the president are over the top. Do you sense the theme? One commentator after another not only lined up to lavish maximalist plaudits on dear leader, just astonishing, said Lawrence O'Donnell. What an incredible moment, added Mika Brzezinski. He really ate his Wheaties tonight, swooned Lindsay Davis on ABC. But like Psaki and Hayes, repeatedly congratulated him for going against public opinion. And this was a point that you made, Keaton, when he came in with Ukraine. He started with Ukraine, and I thought, wait. He's running for president. What's he doing? Asked Maya Davis on the nightcap with Stephanie Rule.
yeah, I had the same thought. I had the exact same thought.
That's exactly what
I
she
mean,
said.
I was similarly surprised, but my thought was he's not running for president. They're going to swap him out of the convention, and that's why he's starting on Ukraine.
Well, apparently they addressed that, but favorably. Then it became very elegantly clear that he was starting with this theme of democracy in the context of his sub-theme, which was history, because he's also underscoring, I may be older, but I'm wiser, agreed Rule.
Okay, listen, morons. You've already locked up the pseudo-intellectual, pretentious douchebag vote. Like, the people who are going to be impressed by weaving together themes of democracy and contrasting it with fascism, that sort of self-satisfied, fake intellectual lib is already voting for Joe Biden. You don't need to win them over with this great speech writing. Yeah,
let me finish it out. Like Psaki, both hosts were wondering, what's he doing? Because polls keep showing the public strongly disagrees with administration policy and performance on Ukraine, and Gaza for that matter. Along with immigration and the economy, these are big reasons Biden's approval rating sits at Trump after 16 levels. As even the Washington Post was forced to admit, the excitement about a CNN Instapoll showing 65% of viewers having a positive view of the speech was misplaced. Presidents always get great scores after the hype of a State of the Union address, and Biden's 65% number was the lowest recorded by CNN in at least 25 years, sitting a full 5 points below the previous last place finisher, 2017 Donald Trump. So to read the rest of it, I would recommend, that's for subscribers only. Subscribe to Racket. That is Matt Taibbi's Substack, and he drops bombs like that usually a couple times a week.
Yeah, I mean, like, what would he have to do to get a bad review? Like, how bad would the speech have to be? There have been videos that have surfaced on X comparing this speech to last year's speech to last year's speech, going back all 3 years, 22, 23, 24, recycling the same phrases, the same themes, and that's what really stood out to me. Not just the same themes and phrases going back 3 years, the same themes and phrases going back 30 years of Democratic State of the Union speeches. I mean, 90% of that speech could have been copied and pasted from Barack Obama's 2011 State of the Union, which no one remembers what it was. I mean, it was 90% boilerplate filler Democrat talking points with a first 5 minutes that was just uncannily out of touch. Like, that's what that speech actually was.
Right.
And how bad would you have to blow it to get a bad review from the media? The answer is you can't get a bad review from the media if you're a Democrat giving a State of the Union.
It would have had to stare off into space for 45 minutes and then walk off.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, really, you'd have, like, anything semi-coherent would have gotten a good review from them. And Taibbi, as he in his conclusion there, really draws attention to the fact that their thesis, and you see it in the Chris Hayes quote, is the people are ignorant troglodyte savages, and they don't understand how great this president is, but we do, and they're just going to have to live with it. They're going to have to go along with it because clearly they just don't get it, but we get it. We get how amazing this speech was, and they're just not capable of understanding the resonances and the historical nuances of what he was saying.
Right. And if you watch our show in the audience, that means you get it too. And you
that
get
is the whole appeal of
self-satisfaction
these shows.
Of thinking you're one of us. You're just like us. You're enlightened.
That's it. That's what these shows are all about. Even as we speak now, there are Sunday morning roundtables convincing a bunch of paycheck to paycheck libs that they are among the elect. But you're not, man. You're not. You are the underlying non-player characters that they use to support their wealth and power. And they keep you in that position by dangling the carrot that you're going to have their status, or even if you don't, you can have the illusion of their status by parroting their opinions.
Please clap.